Hello and welcome back to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am sitting in front of my movie corner. I have my Through Faith t-shirt on, my Gospel of John movie right next to me, and judging by the frame around me, we are back, taking down another atheist. Today on the chopping block is SciManDan, and his video witnessed the worst argument for young Earth ever. I actually haven't really watched much of this video. I know it's about Kent Hovind because I kind of took a scrub through the footage just to kind of see what it is. But, you know, it's one of those things that just kind of keeps popping up in my feed. If there's an advertisement, we'll skip past that, and then we'll kind of move on from there. But anyway, without any further ado, let's jump in and see what Dan thinks is the worst argument for a young Earth ever made.
One of the things I like to look at on Tinfoil Tuesday is the age of the Earth. It interests me because some people still believe that the Earth is more or less 6,000 years old.
That's very true. If you add up the dates in the Bible, that's what it says. Oh, again, were you expecting some huge, like, earth-shattering revelation? Because, Dan, geology was created by Charles Lyell in 1830, okay? Because he wanted to prove that this document was, well, not true. But we know that it is. So, the point being that, yeah, it was created by a lawyer from Scotland. And he just went out and said, this layer's this many thousands of years old, this layer's this 10,000 years old, this one's a couple 100,000 years old, this one's a few 100,000 years old. And then because they didn't have enough time, they kept throwing more time at the layers. Again, was this supposed to be some huge revelation? We have a document that is backed up by archaeology and various other things called the Bible, which shows us that, yeah, the Earth was created about 6,000 years ago. Plus, we have things like the decay of the magnetic field and the orbit of the moon, which actually puts a time limit on how long ago the moon could actually exist. And we also have like various other parts that show, like for instance, carbon-14 is still being created in the atmosphere, which means that it's not reached equilibrium, which would take around 30,000 years. So if the Earth was billions of years old, like your side says, yeah, that would have happened already, but it's still happening, which means that the Earth is less than 30,000 years old. So, what were you lying?
Instead of billions of years old, despite the overwhelming evidence of the latter.
Like what? You'll notice that he says the overwhelming evidence of the latter, like what? Like what I just said, layers of dirt that have practically zero erosion marks for being billions of years old. The fact that we're still creating carbon-14, which if the Earth were billions of years old would have reached equilibrium long before then. It would not still be creating carbon-14. Which is incidentally why C14 dating doesn't actually friggin' work. Again, were these supposed to be earth-shattering revelations? Because honestly, I mean, you'd have to be some kind of an absolute ignoramus to what science is not to understand that there are huge problems with your side, son. Huge problems with your side. You don't have much evidence. I mean, even Darwin wrote in his book that there would be innumerable transitional forms in the ground should his theory be proven. And guess what? We don't see that. We see fully formed animals in the dirt layers, but we don't see transitional forms. There's no such thing as a transitional form. Every animal is fully formed in some way, shape, or another. Plus the fact that I still have yet to have anyone answer this question. If this desert right here behind his head, okay, right up there, right behind his head, why is that desert only 4,300 years old? Why is the world's largest amount of biomass found under this peninsula right here? Incidentally, where the cradle of civilization is. They still can't answer that. So, no. The Earth isn't billions of years old, Dan, and you don't have much evidence of that. You have what people have interpreted as being evidence for it. But then it comes out that that's not actually evidence for evolution.
Whether you believe 6,000 years, 4,000 years, or 10,000 years, the Earth is nowhere near that young.
And how do you know this? You got any evidence for us, Dan? Are you going to present any evidence for us today? I'm willing to bet not. Because he hasn't produced a single shred of evidence on his channel yet to back up his claims. You'll notice that. Okay? He keeps making these bold claims, but he's not actually providing any evidence as to why that is. He doesn't provide a single shred of evidence. Not one. And then when I've posted evidence on my channel, I've had people come over and go, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about." Okay, prove me wrong. I have yet to have a single person provide me one shred of evidence as to where I'm wrong. They just go, "Oh, you're wrong, I'm right, I win." That's not an argument. You can't just say, "You're wrong, I'm right, I win." That's not an argument, folks.
One man is adamant that it is. He calls himself Dr. Dino, and he's gonna get debunked again.
No, he's not. So let me see. Nope. Okay. So he's not going to have anything going on.
Just a quick note before we begin, the SciManDan PO box is now open again. So if you want to send me anything, the address is on screen here. And this time we can open them up every month or so to see what we get. Thank you very much. Right, on with today's video, which features Dr. Dino, or as some of you may know him, Kent Hovind. And he is here to prove that the Earth is not billions of years old. Let's start.
And here's the funniest thing. SciManDan will not be proving that the Earth is billions of years old. Okay? He's just going to say that it is. Now, he might try to cite a few things here and there to try to say, "Oh yeah, see, we know. No, you don't, Dan. You're taking it on faith that the people that have told you that the Earth is billions of years old, that they know what they're talking about. Because they might have degrees behind their names, or they might have spent years in a school somewhere where you haven't. Okay? Whereas I have actually studied in the field. I have actually gone out and done things. I have studied science, and I can tell you that there are a lot of things about the theory of evolution that don't add up. So I'm sorry if I don't believe your assertion that the Earth is billions of years old, when we know that rapid geology is a thing. And that uniformitarianism is completely bunk. Okay? And that the funny thing is that in the book of 2 Peter, Peter the Apostle literally predicted that this was going to happen. Okay? We must be careful to remember that during the last days there are bound to be people who will be scornful, the kind who always praise themselves in what they do, and they will make fun of the promise and ask, "Well, where is this coming? Everything goes on as it has since the fathers died, as it has since the beginning at the creation. They are choosing to forget that there were heavens at the beginning, and that the earth was formed by the word of God out of the water and between the waters, so that the world of that time was destroyed by being flooded by water. But the same word, the present sky and earth, are destined for fire, and the only thing being reserved until judgment day, so that all sinners may be destroyed. So, the biggest thing that you have to remember is that uniformitarianism was literally predicted in the Bible. Everything's going to happen as it has since the beginning of creation. No. Because you weren't there, Dan. I wasn't there. But see, I have a book given to me by a supreme deity that tells me how the earth was created. Okay? Now, you can choose not to believe it if you wish, but this is a book that is backed by about 90% historical accuracy. So it stands to reason that if it's 90% historically accurate, then the other 10% probably is accurate as well. Okay? Whereas you guys always want to claim the Bible was written by men, so why would you want to believe that when you're literally believing things that were written by men, fallible men, in contrast to what we know is true? Forgoing science and completely leaving the realm of science into the realm of a fantasy religious belief. And you want to call that science. That's not science. That's science! Exclamation point trademarked. That is not actual science. Because can you observe the beginning of the earth? Or the beginning of the Big Bang? Can you observe that? No. Not even CERN has been able to do that. Okay? At the LHC. Can you observe evolution? Not speciation. Evolution. Changes in kinds. Because your tree of evolution clearly teaches that. Okay? That there were all these, quote, common ancestors, unquote, that are undefined because we know that when they tried to define them, they couldn't find any fossils in the ground that looked like that, so they just started saying it was a common ancestor and it's a myth. Right. Somehow and as if by magic. You guys want us to think that this is magic? Ha! You guys believe in actual magic. Can you observe the creation of life your way? Miller and Urey didn't even come close. Their experiment created some amino acids, but those amino acids were sitting in a mixture that was like 95 or 95% tar and carboxylic acid, which is toxic to life, by the way. And they had to drain it off because if it went back through and got struck by lightning, it would destroy the very amino acids they were trying to create. And half the amino acids that they created weren't even conducive to life. They didn't even come close to creating the 20 amino acids necessary to make a protein chain, let alone be able to make enough of them to create an entire protein chain. And you're wanting us to believe that that is how it happened? And even if they were able to somehow create all of these things and then siphon them off, and then they would have to figure out how did they go together. It would have taken some kind of intelligence to put all of the amino acids together, because the amino acids wouldn't have just bonded together. They didn't bond together even in the mixture that they got. So the whole point of this is that He is literally sitting there saying, we have all this proof, ha ha ha, we have all this stuff. No, you don't, son. You have next to nothing. And you're calling it evidence because people, fallible human beings, are telling you this is the way it happened, even though they don't have a clue that's how it happened. Yet I have a book that has been backed by archaeological, historical, and anthropological evidence, actual physical science, and you want to dismiss it because reasons. And that's fine. You're welcome to dismiss it. Your willing ignorance of this text does not offend me at all. Okay? You can be willingly ignorant of it. Go for it. But what you can't do is sit there and say, we don't know how it happened. And he doesn't know how it happened, and these people over here say that they have a pretty good idea of what happened, so we're going to take this consensus over here over this one person's opinion. That's literally what he's saying. The general consensus of science is that it's the way it happened. Oh, I'm sorry. What, were you lying? This isn't even about creationism, folks. This is about intelligent design. Intelligent design encompasses a whole range of things. I've mentioned this documentary numerous times. Because even Richard Dawkins is on record saying, I would believe in intelligent design as long as it wasn't God. He says that in this film, okay? So, I'm sorry, Dan, if I don't believe a single thing you say. Because science isn't built on consensus. Okay? Because the consensus of actual climate scientists out there are that the climate changes. Yes, that happens. But man-made climate change has been predicted since, like, the 1950s or 60s. Okay? And here we are in 2024. I remember sitting in the 80s and the early 90s when they created fucking Earth Day. Okay? They literally created Earth Day in the 90s as a day to try to, oh, go plant a tree to try to stop global warming. Oh, go do this. Oh, go do that. Here we are. It's 30 years later, folks. And they're still saying, oh, we're all going to die 12 more years. Ah. And then they keep pushing the goalposts. Yes, the climate does change, but it has nothing to do with us. In fact, the reason why the climate has been changing, and we know this, by the way, is because the sun has an 11-year solar cycle where it gets very, very agitated towards the end of its solar cycle, where it starts to kick off a whole lot of X-rays and EMF waves and all of this stuff, and it wreaks havoc on everything. Okay? And it causes really extreme weather events. And then it settles down for about 4 to 5 years. And then, for the next 6 years after that, 6 to 7 years after that, it starts to get worse because it starts to kick up its solar cycle. And you start looking back and you start noticing that, yeah, some of the years that we've had some of the strongest things, if we go by this right now is the end of its solar cycle, if we start going back every 11 years or so, we start noticing that there's a huge pattern of extreme weather events every 11 years for a period of about 2 to 3 years, right around that solar maximum. And it wasn't until they sent up the Solar Observatory and the Parker Solar Probe that they started noticing this. And they started going, holy crap, maybe it's not us. Son of a gun. Because they started noticing that when they looked through the cores, they started noticing that the temperatures would swing and then the CO2 would go. Not CO2 go, then temperatures swing. It's an opposite effect, not the actual driver. And that's what we're noticing with these solar cycles. We get a ton of CO2 in the atmosphere when we have more extreme weather. And then it tends to settle out for a while, and then as the solar weather starts kicking up, then we start to get changes, radical changes in temperatures, and then we start to increase in CO2 again. You'll notice that the IPCC hasn't said a damn thing since they released their report. Back, I think it was when Obama was ending his term. Okay? And guess what? That was just about 11 years ago. Son of a bitch. Right at the height of all of the storms and the extreme hurricanes and all the people dying. Ah! And you'll notice that for the last 11 years, the IPCC hasn't said a fucking word. They haven't released any more reports saying we're all going to die in 12 years. Mostly because it's almost been 12 years since they released that last report, and son of a bitch, we're all still around. Science, exclamation point trademarked, is not exact when you're just throwing stuff around hoping it sticks to the wall. It doesn't work like that. And Dan needs to start getting on board with it. Because like I said, I like his flat earth stuff. He's pretty funny when it comes to flat earth. But when he's trying to do stuff like this, he's not bringing up anything that is actually meaningful, that is actually scientific. He's just throwing out statements like they're a fact. That's your opinion, son. And it's a subjective opinion unless you've got something to back it up. And I have yet to see one video, maybe there's been a couple of them, but the ones I've reacted to, most of them don't have that much in terms of scientific material to back up the claims that he's making. He just, no, this is the way it is. Okay, that's your opinion. Prove it. Come on. Get out there and prove it.
As Kent makes the mother of all bad analogies.
There's lots of ways to show it can't be billions of years old. I used the illustration about the ink pen. If I said this pen is 5,000 years old, you'd say, Hovind, made out of plastic. Plastic weren't made till 1907. Oh, one fact. Disproved my theory. It's not 5,000. It's made by Bic Corporation. Well, this one's Sharpie, okay? But there, Bic. Bic wasn't a corporation until 1946. You just proved me wrong, didn't you? It's not 5,000.
See what I mean?
Yeah, because he's using the analogy of the pen as a way to say that you have to look at what is being done. So he's saying, I found this pen. I say this pen is 5,000 years old. You come back and say, no, Kent, that pen, plastic wasn't invented until 1907. So how did the plastic get there 5,000 years ago? That's the point of the analogy. Okay? It's the same thing with the fossils, because I can guarantee you that's where Kent's going with it. He's going to say, we have these fossils in here, okay, and you're saying because they're in layer X, they're X millions of years old. How do you know that layer X is X millions of years old? Well, because it has that fossil in it. That's circular reasoning. Kent is also using the thing where he says, well, okay, let's say it's a Bic pen. Okay, if it's a Bic pen, Bic wasn't a corporation until 1946 or 47. Okay? And he says, well, there, see, you just proved me wrong again. It can't be 5,000 years old. Because we know that it says Bic on it. And how did we get Bic? How did we get the letters B-I-C on the side of the pen? Did that come about by naturalistic processes? Come on, Dan, use your brain. Was that designed or was it naturalistic? Did somebody actually carve out a channel that they injected the plastic into that had the letters BIC on it for the corporation, Or did they just happen to find a bunch of random plastic molecules just somewhere in nature that just happened to say the letters BIC, and somebody went, oh, hey, you know what? That'd be a great name for a pen company. Come on, man. Use your brain, son. That's the point of the analogy. We see all of these elements of design, and yet we go, oh, that had to have happened by chance billions of years ago. Huh? That'd be like me walking out and seeing this DVD case in nature, and you concluding, oh, that DVD has to be billions of years old. How? The book wasn't written until like 10, 15 years ago. Maybe 20. I don't know off the top of my head. I know the movie's not that old. But that's the point, son. It can't be billions of years old because it contains information. Information that requires an intelligence. Some kind of intelligence. DNA is a book. You'd have to tell me then, how did a dictionary get made without intelligence? You have to explain it without somebody writing it, okay, or creating it. Did the tree suddenly fall down and then some chemicals washed over it and created the paper, and then some ink-like molecules fell onto it in random ways to create words? Come on, man. Seriously. If you can't explain how a book got made naturalistically, okay, then you have to conclude that there was an author to the book. And guess what? I mean, we can go right here, okay, and we can see that it was published in 1960. And we can see that James R. Killian Jr., Chairman, Board of Trustees, Educational Services Incorporated, wrote the preface for it. Okay? And so we can conclude that the book had an author of some kind. Be it numerous authors or be it just a few other people. Okay? So, I mean, it's like if we look back here, okay, here's Francis Lee Friedman, okay, wrote Appendix 3, okay, which is the development of this book. This book and the coordinated development of laboratory materials, teachers' resources, and films are the cooperative work of many people. Any brief summary of its development is bound to be unsatisfactory. Even the basic outlines and aims were formulated by a large number of people at several centers, and the teachers all over the country share the desire to make a fundamental change to the presentation of physics for beginning students. So literally, this was written by some people, okay? So here's the steering committee. Here's teachers in the first tryout program from 1957 to 1958. Here's the feedback group. Here's the University of Illinois group, the test development group, and then contributors to the PSSC program. Okay? All their names. So we know that this book didn't have a naturalistic origin. We know that it was created with intent. Okay? So if it was created with intent, then what does that say about your DNA? Was it naturalistically and randomly created? Or was it like that physics book? Because you have enough DNA in your body to go from like here to the sun like 66 times or something like that. Okay? If you were to take every single DNA molecule and stretch it out in your body and then string it together and get in a spaceship and like string it out behind the spaceship, you could go to the sun and back like 66 times with the amount of DNA that's in your body. That's just the DNA in your body. That doesn't include the 8 billion other people that are on this planet currently. Okay? So, if that book is that dense, I mean, and it took, it took, like one guy putting all of the stuff together, but it took a whole bunch of people kind of, gathering all the material and making sure that they, that they had it correctly, and then they sent it off over here and they did this and did that. I'm not saying that's what God did, but like, if it took that many people to create that physics book, okay, if it took, like, for instance, it took one man 2.5 months, okay, to write, well, I'll have to get the other one here, to write the book for this, okay, then to bring a book to the screen in 1962, 10 years after the publication of the first James Bond novel, okay, took a whole host of people. Could you then conclude that James Bond was just created at random by a group of monkeys bashing away on a typewriter? Or would you say that it took intelligence to create this? Because I would be willing to bet that if you really looked at it, this is proof of intelligence. Okay? Because one man took experiences that he had in World War II and took some of the stuff that was happening in the Cold War in the late 40s to early 50s, okay, and he put them together into a book called Casino Royale, and then he published it. And then he created like 10 more books after that before he passed away in 1964. And in 1962, okay, they decided to bring that to the screen, and that became Dr. No. And 25 films later, he's still going strong. So would you conclude that this happened by random chance? And if so, how? And just saying it did doesn't make it true. You have to show how did it happen. Did all of the words suddenly randomly appear on a page one day? Somebody was just sitting there and then all of a sudden they looked away and then they looked back, or somebody spilled some ink on a page and then it just happened to form into a bunch of words? And they went, "Wow, what a screenplay. Let's put that on the big screen." Come on. Think about it.
With that logic, Kent, are you going to tell me that rocks weren't invented until 4000 BC, so the Earth couldn't be billions of years old?
No. Nobody ever said that. The rocks were created on the second day, well, third day, when God separated the land from the sea. Okay? That's what we believe. Because that's what the book says. Okay? It says, "Let the waters under heaven come together in a single mass, and let dry land appear." And so it was. God called the dry land earth, and the mass of water seas, and God saw that it was good. So literally the third day. Okay? And then he said, "Produce vegetation." Oh, I'm sorry. Again, were you expecting some earth-shattering revelation? No. The Bible literally says, okay, that on the third day, he separated the water from the land, and he called the land earth and the water seas, and he saw that it was good, and then he created plants. So again, you're trying to conflate two different things there, Dan. Okay, you're trying to say, oh well, because there were no rocks, and did somebody not know what rocks were until, dude, they didn't even know what gravity was before Sir Isaac Newton came along and named it, and we still don't really know what gravity truly is. Okay, we know it sticks us to the spinning ball in space, and that certain objects have more of it But we don't know exactly how or why. And neither do you. Because here's the point, dude. We know that gravity exists, but where did it come from? Who put it there? To make it so that we would stick to this spinning ball. To this thing behind your head there, buddy boy. Okay? How do we, who put that there? Didn't happen by chance. Why isn't it bigger? Why isn't it smaller? Why is it just right? For life, we're exactly where we need to be for life to exist. A few degrees more away, we would be Hoth. A few degrees closer, we'd be Tatooine. Literally. I mean, yeah. The closest planet to Earth, actually the two closest planets to Earth in terms of having an atmosphere and having some kind of gravity to being able to be walked on, are two of the harshest planets in our solar system. Mars, which is extremely cold, okay, it's extremely cold on Mars, and its atmosphere is very thin, okay, that even if we could breathe it, the oxygen content would be so tiny that we probably wouldn't be able to breathe much. It would be like being at the top of Mount Everest, okay, if it did have oxygen in its atmosphere, which it doesn't. And the other planet, which is similar to ours, is Venus, which literally the Russians landed a probe on it, returned one picture, and promptly died because the atmosphere is so corrosive. We only have one picture of the surface of Venus, okay? The planet is so hot, and its atmosphere is so corrosive that it literally eats through the electronics. Like, they landed the thing, it unfolded, they took a single picture, and they lost contact with it. And we haven't sent anything back. Because we realized, okay, when the Russians were like, we landed a probe on Venus, and we went, awesome, what'd you get? And they said, one picture. So we said, well, send us your data. And they sent the data, and we went, yeah, that's a problem. So literally acid rain. And it's so hot, if the acid rain doesn't eat through the electronics, it literally melts the electronics because it's so damn hot on that planet. So, like, why is this planet exactly where it needs to be? And the next two closest planets that we have that we could possibly colonize at some point, one is extremely cold and the other is extremely hot. Both of them are hostile to life. I'm not saying that God just wanted us to stay here, but I'm just saying that it's like, if evolution is so advantageous, why haven't we been able to evolve the ability to have chloroplasts so that we don't have to eat? Why haven't we evolved the ability to breathe underwater yet? Because 70% of the surface of our planet is water. And if that's the way it's always been, why haven't we adapted to that yet? Well, probably because this is the way we were designed to live.
I think I can easily prove scientifically the Earth cannot be billions of years old. Tonight we're going to talk about human language. Let's look at some facts from humanity that indicate man has not been here for millions of years. Language, both written and spoken, is evidence that humanity is not billions of years old.
Well, that is probably the mother of all straw man arguments.
How? How is that a straw man? Come on. How's that a straw man? Think about it. Out of every single thing on this planet, okay, we haven't found a single one that communicates the same way that we do. Oh, we can think that, oh, that bird is chirping in a certain way, telling its friends this. No. That is not the bird thinking in its mind, hey, I better tell my friends that there's humans about. No. It sees a human and it basically just warbles. And the other birds go, huh? See the human and go, whee! That's it. There is no conscious thought from them. Now, it's true that certain birds can mimic human speech, okay? But they will not actually speak. They just repeat what they say, what we say to them. It's like a Furby, okay? The Furby, a lot of people were like, oh, the Furby can do this and do that. No, literally all the Furby did, okay, was you talk to the Furby listens, okay? And then the Furby, would then repeat back to you what you said. And then at times, there was a little chip inside that would mix up the words, and then it would try to string a new sentence together. It would literally take the vocabulary of words that it had recorded, okay, and it would mix the words up and then try to string together new sentences. It was some of the first, AI type thing that they had tried to come up with, okay, that they marketed as a toy. And it bombed because what ended up happening is that people's Furbies were turning on in the middle of the night and saying random things. And people thought they were demonically possessed. So they ended up just taking the batteries out of the damn things and then never playing with them again. And so Furbies sold horribly because people were like, I don't want an Amazon Alexa listening to me. Okay? And saying things in the middle of the night. That's the point. But could you conclude then that Furbies came about without some designer behind them? They just appeared. Naturalistically, they just appeared. Because how did the Furby learn human language? It learned by listening. Okay? When you bought a new Furby, and you stuck batteries in it, you turned it on, and you set it down, and then didn't say a word, it wouldn't say anything back to you. Ever. It's only when you started talking with the Furby on, it would listen, and then it would repeat back what you just said. And then you would have to talk to it on a regular basis, and eventually it started building a vocabulary of words. Okay? And then it would string those words together randomly. It would just pick words, and then would string them together randomly to create sentences. That's what was so interesting about a Furby, was that sometimes it would come up with pretty clever things, other times it just said a bunch of gibberish. Okay? Because it was just stringing together words randomly. That's what parrots, cockatiels, all those type of birds do. They listen, they hear, and then they mimic. In fact, I had a cockatiel once when I lived in Port Townsend, Washington, and it was hard to get that thing to understand words. Now, I think I got it to say once, I love you. But it was like pulling teeth. Literally. Like you had to say it, and say it, and say it, and say it, and say it. And then finally, one day, he kind of spout out something that sounded similar to I love you. the human brain tends to matrix, okay? What that means is that our brains are trained to recognize words and patterns. Like, I can look at this box art, okay? If you've never seen this box art cover before, you're probably going, that's a busy box art cover. But here's the funny thing about this box art cover, okay? I can point here and say, well, that's a Naboo soldier. That's a Jedi because she has a lightsaber. And that's a Wookiee because he's covered in hair, okay? And this is Darth Maul. And then you have this special action figure and stuff like that. But if I didn't know what Star Wars was, and I was handed this, and I was told to identify what these are, I would probably look at this and go, I have no idea. What is that? I've never seen those before. Like, I don't know. What are they? I mean, that guy kind of looks like a soldier type guy because he's got a gun. I might say she looks like some kind of a knight because she has something that looks like a sword in her hand. And this, I don't know what this guy is because he's like a dog. Like an anthropomorphic dog with some kind of a weird looking, like, crossbow. And you might say, you're close. Because I know that from the way that this guy looks, his stance, the gun that he's holding, he's a soldier, right? We know that because we've been shown pictures of soldiers. We've seen movies with soldiers in them. Like, for instance, Saving Private Ryan, right? We see the silhouette of a soldier. It's clear on the cover that that's a soldier. Okay? We can even look at the back of the box and we can see guys. We can see guys in the back that have helmets on. We can see these guys walking up Omaha Beach. Okay? We've seen pictures of soldiers before, okay? Like, here's another one with Overlord, okay? This is a good example of like, what a soldier looks like. Because here's a guy literally pointing a gun, right? He's like, kind of like this guy. And kind of like this guy. Okay? So our brain takes that image of a soldier. Okay? And it says, oh, if it's something that looks like a gun, guess what? That's got to be some kind of soldier guy. Right? He's got a gun, he's holding a gun, and he's like, you know, he's either aiming or he's holding a gun. You know, it's a soldier of some kind. Okay, that makes sense. Because your brain automatically takes that information and says, aha, I get it. I know what this is. I may not know the exact name. I may not know. If I did not know that this was a guy from episode 1, okay, who's a Naboo soldier, then I can at least determine that he is a soldier of some type. I may not know where he's from. I may not know what his occupation is completely. But I know he's some kind of soldier because the way that he's holding himself, okay, shows me that he's a soldier, okay? And if I come down here and I grab some of these, so like, let me grab hers. Let me grab his. And let me grab his. Okay? Because I'm going to show you. So, when I said, like, he's a soldier of some kind, right? Well, here's his character sheet. And right there, under his name, it says Human Soldier. Okay? And you can even see that now in this picture, okay, let me put out the whole entire thing for you. Okay, it shows you that he is literally going, like he's holding his gun and he's kind of like, hey guys, come on up. Okay? Which is what? Hand signals, things that soldiers do, right? We've seen that in movies before. Then it shows an actual still from the movie of actual Naboo soldiers. Okay? So that you understand, oh, okay, this guy is an actual soldier. Okay? Now, here's the Wookiee. Okay? This is Rawer. Okay? He is a Wookiee scout. Okay? And so, you know, I said he was kind of a soldier type character. Okay, I can kind of see that. Because he has his bowcaster, right? I said it was kind of a crossbow-like thing. And then he's got, you know, he's kind of wearing the trappings of a scout. Okay? Which they were kind of going a little bit for Chewbacca in that respect. Okay? And then I said the other person was a knight of some kind. Okay? And there's Cylon Wez, okay? Who is a Jedi Guardian. Now, a Jedi Guardian, she's a Padawan. A Jedi Guardian is kind of like what Obi-Wan and Anakin were, okay? Qui-Gon was more of a Jedi Consular like Yoda, okay? Jedi Guardians are the ones that actually, you know, like they use their lightsabers a little bit more aggressively than the Consulars do. The Consulars are more adept at diplomacy, whereas Guardians are more adept with using their actual lightsabers. But you can see that she has her lightsaber. You can see that she has her little clothing on and stuff like that. Okay? So the point being that our brains, okay, tend to find patterns and then try to make sense of those patterns. This is something that in the paranormal world, okay, sometimes if you're walking by a certain mirror or certain windows, certain things, your brain might see something that looks like a face. And you might go, oh my gosh, there's a face in this mirror. And somebody comes by and looks at it and goes, no, those are just smudges. There's nothing on this mirror that shows a face. And you go, oh, I swore I saw a face in there a second ago. So you turn around and you walk back and you start walking forward, and then all of a sudden you see it. At a certain angle, those smudges look like two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. But looking at it from a different perspective, they're not that. And you go, huh. It's because your brain has been trained to recognize two eyes, a nose, and a mouth since birth. Because what was the first thing your open eyes saw? Of your parents. The two eyes, the nose, and the mouth of your parents. Okay? And at around about 6 to 7 months, the infant brain starts to make connections where it starts to take the two eyes, the nose, and the mouth of your parents and store it away. And you start to recognize that as the face of your mom. And you start to recognize the other one as the face of your dad. And you start to recognize those faces. And if you have any siblings, you start to recognize their face. Okay? To the point where, by the time that you're about 2 to 3 years old, you have no trouble recognizing faces. Okay? And so it's like when you get dropped off at school at 5 years old to go to preschool, and you're like, how am I supposed to find you at the end of the day? What does your mom say? Just look for my face. And when you come walking out of class and you see your mom, not anyone else's mom, but your mom, your brain goes, click! And you go, Mom! And you run over and you jump into her arms. Because you've been gone from her for like 3 hours. And she picks you up, she puts you in the car, she takes you home. Because your brain recognizes the face. Okay? And so, our brains start recognizing patterns. The problem is that now we're starting to try to ascribe patterns in nature to make it say like, okay, this dog, I tell it to sit. Okay? I point at him, I say, sit. And the dog sits, right? Okay? That's because when I first had to train that dog, did I say, sit, and it just automatically knew what to do? No. Okay? What did he have to do? What did he have to figure out? When I say sit, plop your butt on the floor. Okay, I literally had to probably walk up to the dog and push his butt down on the floor and then say sit. So that the dog makes the connection of, oh. And then I give him a treat and rub his ears. And he goes, oh. And in the dog's mind, okay, the dog is saying, my owner, when he says sit, when I hear this three-letter, this short command, sit, I need to take my butt and put it on the floor. And then he gives me a treat and praise. That's all his thought process is. Sound, action. I get reward. That's it. Okay? That's all the dog's thought process is. Now, it's funny when we ascribe, we put things on there and you see dogs that are vocal, like Mika the Husky or, something like that. And you see these dogs that are sitting there and they're just... And you kind of laugh and and then you see people ascribing, human speech to it. That's not what the dog's probably thinking. Dog's probably just I'm annoyed. You always have that stupid camera on. You always got it in my face. I just want to be left alone. Let me go sleep. You guys are always filming content. Probably what it is half the time. Okay? But we ascribe certain things to that. Okay? Because we're trying to recognize patterns in their behavior. And then we're trying to ascribe human value to that behavior. Whether or not that behavior warrants any human value at all, we try to do that because that's what we as human beings know. Okay? And the funny thing is, this is another thing that I've noticed about people when they talk about apes and they talk about things. Here's the funniest thing. Okay? There's a ape enclosure at Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington. Okay? And they taught some apes sign language. Okay? And how they taught them how to do the sign language is they would point to an object and then they would make a sign of what that object is. Okay? They would point to the object, make a sign. Point to the object, make a sign, like a banana. Then they'd make a sign of what that banana meant in sign language. Okay? So that the monkey went, or the chimpanzee went, oh, so if I want a banana, I just make this sign and they give me a banana. That's all it was. Okay? Funny thing, they thought, oh, since we're descended from apes, we're going to teach this monkey how to speak, and then then she's going to have some offspring, and then we'll see how she does. Guess what? She didn't teach her offspring anything. Oh, the monkey learned, the young chimpanzee learned a few signs from mom making some signs. But when asked what that sign meant, when asked, when they would make the sign, then the researchers would point to an object and say, which one is that? And they would just go, because they didn't know. They just saw their mom doing it. That's monkey see, monkey do. That's not being taught. We're the only species, if you want to get technical, we're the only kind of animal that actually instructs our offspring in what to do. Most things have some kind of an instinct. Like lions instinctively know, I'm hungry, there's an antelope, I better kill it and eat it. So they chase them down and they kill one and then they eat it. But they don't, their offspring learn by watching the pride go out and attack and eat. That's all they learn. That's all how they learn. And they just go, oh, so when I'm hungry, I just need to go out and find an animal and kill it and eat it. Okay, cool. That's it. That's its entire thought process. Oh, it's cute when we make Disney movies and we say, oh, look at that. Oh, man, all those little animals acting like humans. Yay. No, they don't actually do that in nature. Because we've had observations of all of these things, and literally, lions do like 3 things. They breathe, they sleep, they eat. Maybe 4 things, they poop too, but that's it. Okay? Maybe 5 if you want to count procreation every once in a while. But that's it. That's all they do. Okay? So let's continue on and let's see where Dan is trying to go with this.
I don't think I have ever heard anyone say or claim that humanity is billions of years old.
I think what he's trying to say is that we can prove that humanity is not billions of years old through common ancestors because of language. Because you'd have to tell me, when were humans smart enough to start inventing a language? And what was that language? Okay? Because we know that there was only one language on the earth until the Tower of Babel. And most languages can be traced back to one language on this planet. Why do you think we can figure most languages out? Even dead ones. Like Latin and a few others that people don't speak anymore, but we can still figure them out. Why do you think that is? Because all languages have a common root in a singular language that was spoken thousands of years ago. And then was confused by God at the Tower of Babel, and it went around. But again, we're the only kind of animal on this planet that has speech and that has a language. Okay? Because I can guarantee you, when dogs are barking at each other, they're not speaking. They're not speaking. They're just barking. They're just making a sound. And other dogs are answering that sound. That's it. They're pack animals. Okay? It's like when a flight of geese goes overhead. Okay? The lead goose, okay? A goose in flight cannot turn its head. If it turns its head, it turns its whole body. So he doesn't know if he's being followed or not. So to know if he's being followed, he honks. Okay? And then all of the geese behind him honk to basically say, we're following you. That's it. That's the only thing it is. It's just, he's just going honk, honk, and they're just going honk, honk back to show that, hey, yeah, we're still here. That's it. There's no actual language. I mean, but they're not even saying we're here. Their honk is just letting that other bird know that, yeah, you're still the lead bird, and we're following you. That's it. Because the lead bird doesn't know if he's being followed or not. Because he can't turn his head. So they're not communicating. They're just honking. They're just making noise as a way of saying, we're following you. That's it. It's just the lead bird going honk, honk, and the other one's answer. It's like Marco Polo in the pool. If you ever play Marco Polo, when somebody goes Marco and then everybody yells Polo and then you try to find them and you have your eyes closed, you're like Marco and then they're like Polo and then you're like Marco and then they're like Polo. That's basically all it is. The lead bird is basically shouting Marco and everyone else is shouting Polo. But in this case, it's just geese going honk and then the other one's going honk, 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 honk. Because that way, the lead bird knows he's being followed. So if he isn't being followed, then he's going to turn around and go find his people. How's he going to find them? He's going to keep honking till he hears them honk back at him. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a locator. That's it. There's no intelligence around it. It's just a, hey, everybody back there, yeah, we're here. And that's it. I'm only using that in human terms because that's how you'll understand it. But to a goose, it's just, I'm honking. Okay, I'm receiving honks. Okay, they're following me. That's it. He just knows in his little tiny bird brain that, yeah, I'm being followed by the other birds. Okay? When I honk and they honk back at me, I know I'm being followed. So, no, Dan, nobody is saying that humanity was billions of years old. But we can say that animals are not billions of years old because of human communication. Because you would have to kind of prove that we didn't have any kind of speech like pre-Homo erectus or pre-Homo, whatever was before Homo erectus. Okay? You would have to prove that those animals didn't have any way of communicating with each other, okay, or had some sort of primitive, I take a bone and I whack you up alongside the head to get you to pay attention to me kind of communication. Because what would have communication look like back then? Because even the grunts and the stuff like that apes make are not communication. They have warning grunts, like if something comes along and they need to get up into the trees or something, they'll make a certain sound, but it's more of just a warning, if anything else. And how do they get predators away from them? They throw their feces at them. They literally defecate into their hand and throw it. That's their anti-predator deterrent system. And they even use it against humans. Do we do that? We've never done that. Ever. In recorded history, has anyone ever defecated into their hand and thrown it at another person to say, get away from me, you predator? No. Because we have cognitive reasoning skills and we figured out, if I take this stick and I sharpen it, I can stick it into things. And if I take this stone and I kind of sharpen it up and I put it on the end of my sharp stick, I have an even sharper point to stab with. Woo! Yeah. Any other animals do that? No. We're the only ones that figured out how to use weapons. And hell, even in 2001, A Space Odyssey, okay, Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick wrote into their screenplay that the monolith, which was from an advanced civilization, okay, was put on Earth to accelerate evolution. And then in 2001, when we discovered the monolith on the moon, it sent out a signal to the one at Jupiter. And when we sent, 1999, and then when we sent the ship, the Discovery, out to find it, that's when Dave Bowman went into the monolith and became the Star Child, which was another level of human evolution. If you go read 2063, I think was the third book. Or 2061, Odyssey 3. I think it was. Whatever the third book is. It's Odyssey 3. I can't remember. It's 2061, I think. Odyssey 3. Okay? And that one, you know, kind of like at the very end of it, when Floyd, as an old man now, okay, goes to Europa, because a ship crash lands on Europa, and at the end of 2010, they're told, all these worlds are yours except Europa, attempt no landing there, because the monolith wanted to control the evolution of the creatures on Europa, okay? And what ends up happening is that a ship crash lands on Europa. And so Floyd contacts Dave Bowman, who's the Star Child, inside of the monolith, and he says, we have to land to get our people off. And he says, what will you do if you do land? And Floyd says, I'll stay. And Bowman says, okay. So his son is piloting the ship. His son was piloting the ship. He lands and he tells his son, get on board. And his son's like, I'm not going to leave you. And he's like, go. He's like, don't worry about me. And then he walks into the monolith because Dave Bowman appears and says, come on in. And so Floyd walks into the monolith, and then basically Dave Bowman and Hal, the computer from the Discovery, basically he was kind of pulled into the monolith by Dave Bowman when Jupiter became the second sun in the end of 2010. And basically Floyd goes into the monolith, and then basically Dave Bowman and HAL 9000 basically tell Floyd exactly what has been going on. That the monolith has been directing human evolution, and now it's directing evolution on this planet, and after a certain number of years they'll move on to other planets, and they'll do other things, and they'll do this and they'll do that. And there's this whole big explanation at the end, and it's been a long time since I've read it, so I might be getting it wrong. But anyway, the point being that even in 2001, okay, the monolith was literally showing the ape-like ancestors how to do things, because like it lets out this high-pierced shriek, and like all of the apes are like, you know, kind of clutching their auditory sensors, aka ears, and then like a few days later, Moonwatcher, who's kind of the main ape of the thing, is like standing near a pile of bones, and he starts like and he just kind of picks one up, and he just kind of starts like smacking other bones with it. And then he discovers that if he picks it up with his fist and he starts pounding on it, because now all of a sudden he can make a fist. They were all played by humans anyway. And he starts bashing things. Okay, that he could do that. And then basically what ends up happening is that he discovers that he can become sort of the alpha if he bashes the brains of the other apes that are challenging him. And then he throws the thing up into the air, and then it becomes a thing, a spaceship. And then that's when they kind of come up to the present. And so even that is believing in intelligent design, okay? Or at least an intelligent direction for evolution, where basically the monolith, through those high-pitched signals, was altering brain chemistries and, you know, creating a new life form in the way that it was trying to direct evolution, I guess. I don't know exactly, because again, it's been so long since I've read the whole series. But the point being that when Dan wants to sit there and think that Kent is saying that humans can't be billions of years old, we're saying that the Earth can't be billions of years old, and animals cannot have been around this long because other animals probably would have developed some kind of an intelligence by now. Don't you think? Why is it only humans? Why haven't dogs? Why haven't cats? Why haven't horses? Why haven't dolphins? Why haven't... There's a ton of species on this on this earth that could have developed some kind of speech by now. Unless maybe there wasn't enough time. Because that's the answer to everything, isn't it, Dan? More time. Let's go a little bit longer and then we'll call it an episode.
Never. Come on, Kent, you must do better.
Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Yes, it did.
Verse 3, and God said. The first mention of language is God speaking.
Yep.
It's mentioned a bunch of times. God said, God said, God said, all through the
Yes,
Bible.
it is.
Like a whole bunch of times. God said. See, God created language.
Mm-hmm.
God created using language. He just spoke everything into existence. Didn't lift a finger, didn't turn a screw, tighten one bolt. Just spoke. And there it was. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
In a language which is now probably extinct.
So, actually, you're still using part of that language, Dan. So am I. So is everybody on this spinning globe. Every language developed from that first language. So while that first language is technically a dead language, yes, it is extinct, we are using parts of it. Because English is Latin and Greek by way of French and German. That's where we get like 90% of our language, okay, from English. The rest comes from like Spanish and a few other places because we're a melting pot of things, okay, especially here in America, okay. We've had a lot of, people from other countries that have come, and so we picked up a lot of their uses of certain things and slang words and various things like that, but 90% of our language is Greek and Latin by way of German and French. Okay? That's where it comes from. So now, where did Greek and Latin originate? Did you ever ask yourself that? Where did Greek and Latin originate? Okay? Where did Arabic originate? Where did Hebrew originate? It all traces back to one language that was spoken, okay? And then those languages started splitting off at some point in the distant past. And we have a record of that happening. Oh, again, were you expecting some crazy thing? It's literally Genesis 11. Throughout the earth, men spoke the same language, with the same vocabulary. Now as they moved eastward, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, where they settled. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them in the fire." For stone they used bricks, and for mortar they used bitumen. "Come," they said, "let us build ourselves a town, and a tower with its top reaching heaven. Let us make a name for ourselves, so that we may not be scattered about the whole earth." Now Yahweh came down to see the town and the tower that the sons of man had built. "So they are all a single people with a single language," said Yahweh. "This is but the start of their undertakings. There will be nothing too hard for them to do. Come, let us go down and confuse their language on the spot, so that they can no longer understand one another." Yahweh scattered them thence over the whole face of the earth, and they stopped building the town. It was named Babel, therefore, because there Yahweh confused the language of the whole earth. It was from there that Yahweh scattered them over the whole face of the earth. Babel is derived here from a verb meaning to confuse, but in fact the name means gate of the god. I mean, that's literally where we get the term babbling on, like Babel. Okay, B-A-B-B-L-E, okay, is literally from the Tower of Babel. Okay, B-A-B-E-L. Okay. And yes, it means gateway to a god, because they were trying to build a tower up there, and God basically confused all of their languages and then scattered them. Okay? So yeah, what was that first language they spoke? Yeah, we could probably reconstruct it. Okay? We probably could. Because if we started taking things back to their original roots, and we started using those things back to their original roots, we would probably be able to figure out, yeah, there's the language, there's this, there's that, psh, everything's working. We could probably reconstruct that language. Hell, we could reconstruct Latin if we wanted to. Okay? There are people that still know how to speak it, even though it's not being spoken by a ton of people. Because yes, it is a dead language. We don't speak it much anymore. It used to be taught here in America. And I think over in England they taught it for a long time too. Okay? Because that was what you had to learn, was Latin. Because most churches at the time, and this was prior to 1611, okay, but even after 1611, okay, people were still learning Latin. Why? Because Latin was the root of English. So is Greek. But Latin is the main root. We get certain words from Greek, but we also, we get probably more of our words from Latin than we do from Greek. Okay? But there are a lot of Greek words that we get, that we use in common terminology today that have roots in Greek. Like, for instance, apologetics. That is literally a Greek word, apologia. It means defense of. Okay? So, I'm sorry if I don't subscribe to your meaning there, Dan. That yes, that language is probably extinct, but we still use parts of it today. In everything we do. Everybody on earth uses a piece of that language. And yes, we can trace all languages back to a common single language at some point in the distant past. It was about 4,300 years ago. Because it doesn't say exactly how long after the flood that they started building the tower. It just says that Moses commanded them to go out and, and multiply and fulfill the earth and replenish the earth, and they decided not to. They settled on the plain of Shinar, which is somewhere kind of northern Iraq, southern Turkey. That's where the plain of Shinar is. At least that's our understanding of it. Okay? As it says, they headed out east. Okay? And they would have been around the mountains of Ararat, because that's where the ark came to rest, which ironically is actually right up in here. But anyway, I think we'll go ahead and call that an episode for now. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of this video series so far. And I'm sorry about not getting to the Sword and Sorcery LP. I had some things happen this week, but it will be happening next week. I'm going to take a couple weeks off because I'm doing this, and then I have a personal trip planned for about 9 days, and then when I get back after the 21st of March, we'll get back into this, and then I'm going to try to do like this for a couple weeks, and then I'll do the Sword and Sorcery LP, and I'll do these for a couple weeks, and I'll do the Sword and Sorcery LP. I'm also going to be doing a review of Dune Part 2. You can see right now that I have a hole right here where my Dune miniseries is, because I'm currently watching it. I just watched the 84 Lynch Dune, because I'm getting ready to do a review of Dune Part 2, because I'm going to watch it while I'm on that personal trip. And then, when I get back from that, actually during that trip, I will do a review and upload it to YouTube. So be on the lookout for that. And as we say, we will see you on the next one.